Hello and welcome to On the Record, a debate-style television talk show where Bahamians will find the balanced, true and open debate they've been looking for. The tourism industry in the Bahamas is vital to the economic growth. With an average of 1.5 million stopover visitors and 3.5 million cruise visitors per annum, tourism has become the largest driver of the economy in the Bahamas. A little under 50% of the population of the Bahamas is employed in the tourism industry. And our economy has enjoyed a 1.3 billion tourist dollars spent here per annum. Like other industries in the country, tourism enjoys its highs and lows, but it continues to keep Bahamians employed and keep our country in a positive light on the world map. Tonight we have as our guest the Minister of Tourism and Aviation, the Honorable Dionisio de Aguilar, and we're going to discuss various aspects of the country's #1 industry to include the purchase of the Grand Lucayan. Our topic tonight is Bahamas tourism. The golden goose is laying golden eggs. It's all on the record. I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer. Our discussion begins on the other side of this break.
Hi, I'm here to tell you about the fastest way to purchase the vehicle you want right from home.
With SBT Japan, we import used cars from Japan straight to you.
Car ownership doesn't have to be hard. Go to sbtjapan.com and sign up for free. Search for the car you want, place your order, and make a payment using any one of our convenient payment options. Once you pay the duty and tax to our in-house broker, we will clear the vehicle and even deliver it straight to your home. Sounds too easy? Well, shouldn't it be?
Are you afraid to swipe your card and you don't like to carry cash? If so, you need checks. Executive Printers can make checks for all your needs. They have laser checks, personal checks, continuous checks, and more. All checks have up to 15 security features, so you know you'll be protected. You can even customize your checks. Come and see one of our experts today, or log on to epbahamas.com for more info.
And welcome back to On the Record. In this first segment, we're going to take a general look at how our industry is doing. Our topic tonight is Bahamas tourism. The golden goose is laying golden eggs. And our guest is the Minister of Tourism and Aviation, the Honorable Dionisio de Aguilar. Welcome, sir, to the show. Happy to have you with us.
Thank you, Jerome, for having me. My first time here.
Yes. We've been waiting a long time. Of course, welcome to our show. Earlier this month, it was reported that tourism revenue was bullish. Thus far, with a 165 million estimated taken from the from the year before, same period. Want to talk about really what accounts for the rise in the numbers, what accounts for this period and the successful period that we are experiencing right now in tourism?
So there are a number of reasons. First and foremost, the substantial increase in tourism arrivals, stopover visitors. So let's just differentiate between what's gone up and what hasn't gone up. So our cruise arrivals have been generally quite flat. But more importantly, for the first 6 months of 2018, stopover visitors have risen a staggering 15+%, which is amazing. And the reason why stopover visitors, for the listening public, stopover visitors are those foreign visitors that come to your country, land at the airport, get in a taxi, go to a hotel.
Right. They stay a period of time.
Yes,
yeah.
And the reason why that component of your tourism arrival statistics is so important is those passengers spend 20 times more than a cruise passenger.
Sure.
So if you look at all the foreign visitors that come to this country, 75% of our foreign visitors come on a cruise, but it only represents 11% of the spend. The stopover visitors, they represent 25% of your foreign visitors. They represent 89% of your spend. So your stopover visitors are the most important, the most component of your tourism arrivals. And when that number is up double digits, I can safely say that tourism is hot. Now, why is tourism doing so well? The first reason is the American economy. The American economy is doing exceptionally well. President Trump has given all of his citizens a tax cut. Unemployment is at a record low. People have money in their pockets.
All the Democrats watching the show immediately hate you for that statement. But go ahead.
Say what you want about the American president. He has brought about a boom in his economy. And stock market is up. People are feeling wealthy. And when they feel wealthy, they travel. So that's the first reason. The second reason, of course, is the opening of Bahama. That has added roughly 2,300 rooms available in our room inventory. People are coming to check it out. They're, of course, doing substantial marketing to attract foreign visitors to this country. And when you look at the 15% increase in our stopover visitors, 11 out of the 15 is coming on the island of New Providence, and primarily due to the opening of the Bahama product. So the Grand Hyatt is open, the SLS is open, and the Rosewood just opened, so that property is now almost fully functional. The third reason, and I've got to pat myself on the back and the people who work at the Ministry of Tourism, I think we've done an excellent job of redirecting our marketing dollars to focus on how people purchase their vacations. 80% of our foreign visitors come from the United States, and of that, 70% of them purchase their vacations online. So we have redirected a lot of our marketing dollars to the social media, the electronic methodologies that people now use to purchase their vacations, the Expedia, the Google, those mechanisms, TripAdvisor, those mechanisms that people use to purchase their vacations. We've hired a new advertising agency. We've rehired a public relations company. The previous administration had no advertising agency on staff, no public relations company employed. And so we re-engaged them, getting our word out there that, you know, the Bahamas is open for business, the new products that are out there. We've also used a lot of social media influencers. You know, these people that come down, they experience all of the different facets of your tourism product.
And they talk about it.
And they go online and they talk about it, and they've got, you know, hundreds of thousands of followers. That's very effective. So we've redirected
and social media advertising, if you think about it in that context, is a lot cheaper than your traditional advertising. Eh?
Yeah, and absolutely. And it's what's wonderful about it. You can see where people purchase their vacations. You can see if you invest $1, how many people then book. You can see where people book. And when you see where people book, you can see where people are not booking. So you can redirect your advertising dollars to where people are not booking and say, oh, we're slipping in this market. Let's go there and do some advertising. So it makes you become smarter. You become more intelligent. And your limited advertising dollar can be directed to those specific markets where you need to perform. If you put in a new airlift, you can direct those zip codes, that demographic in those areas, with a pinpoint, laser-like focus, and begin to yield results. And the fourth reason why the numbers are up, obviously there was the hurricanes of 2017, and there were a certain portion of the Caribbean hotel inventory was damaged, and people who want a Caribbean vacation, who may have traditionally gone to those other islands, said, okay, well, let me come to the Bahamas. And so we got a bump from that. So it was like everything lined up, and we did well.
So all the stars aligned. So we're looking at 15.2% increase in stopover arrivals, 110,000 additional visitors. The average stopover visitor spend $1,500.
Yes.
Why is that so significant? You talked about the stopover versus the cruise passengers, and interestingly, when you drive through downtown, I go through downtown almost every day, the cruise passengers are the ones you probably see the most because they're always out and moving around. But again, talking about the importance of the stopover experience, the stopover visitor versus the cruise passenger, and what are we doing to maintain those numbers?
So, once again, the stopover visitor, we love stopover visitors. They come to your country usually by air. Some of them come by their own private boat, but most of them come by air. They come through your airport. They typically use some mode of transportation to get from the airport to their hotels, so putting money in the hands of local Bahamians. They get into the hotel, they eat at the food and beverage outlets, they go on a tour, they shop in the stores, they gamble in the casinos. They're here for an average of 3 to 4 days. Their impact is far more significant than a cruise passenger who comes on a 3-day cruise, probably spends 5 or 6 hours if we can get them to stay off the boat that long. And I've been in the press mentioning that of the 3.6 million foreign visitors that come through the port of Nassau each year, 3.6 million, which is, if not the busiest port, cruise port in the Caribbean, it's certainly in the top 3. So we have a challenge that when these passengers come off, we have to create something that's interesting, unique, experiential for them to want to engage in and spend their money on. And right now, they're coming off in droves. They tend to go to Junkanoo Beach, which for those of us that live in the Bahamas know that that's not the best beach in the Bahamas.
But they love it. They flock there in droves.
And so, you know, we have as a challenge, and this is what I'm challenging Bahamian entrepreneurs and Bahamian businessmen. The Ministry of Tourism has done a wonderful job of attracting these people to Nassau. Our geography makes this destination attractive to people. Let's figure out how we can engage. And the Ministry of Tourism's job is to provide the conduit between you with the idea or the business and the cruise company. We obviously have access to the cruise companies. We talk to them all the time. We know the people who book and plan the excursions. And if you want to become a part of their menu of choices for their passengers, you come to us and we make the connection. So we as a nation have to challenge ourselves where the average cruise passenger spends between $70 and $80 when they come here. Wow. Whereas if they go to St. Martin, it's almost up to $196. So we have a $100 gap to fill. And that means that there are a lot of people that... From
what you've been able to determine, what is causing that shortfall for us? What are the things that are causing these cruise passengers not to spend? When you're looking at a stopover visitor who's spending an average of $1,500, that's quite. I mean, that's quite a bit of money when you consider you're spending $60 to $80 now. What's causing that?
I think that first of all, there's location fatigue. People who've been on cruises go on multiple cruises, so they've been here before. So they don't decide.
And not much has changed.
Yeah, so they come here and they're like, man, I've been to Nassau. I don't need to get off, or I just walk around. A lot of them get off, and by lunchtime they're attracted back to the free lunch on the boat. They get back on. They're just not adventurous. Of the people that come on the cruise ships, only 30% of them, 35% of them book excursions. So 65% of those that get off are coming off like, I wonder what there is to do. And I don't think we have, and I'm sure we'll talk about this later at the Port of Nassau, I don't think we've set it up in such a way that really allows the customer to say, well, what can I do? What are my options? When I come off that boat and I haven't booked an excursion, none of the excursions that the cruise ship is offering me is exciting me. So what are my options as I come off? What else can I do? So, yeah, we have to do and that was one of the reasons why the government removed the import duty on clothes, to try to make our destination more attractive, at least from a price point, so these foreign visitors are coming off. And that's why a lot of people go to St. Martin to shop, because electronics are cheaper, clothes are cheaper, no duty, no taxes. And so people save up. And another thing that we fail to tap into is the crew on these cruise ships. Some of them talk down the destination because there ain't nothing for them to do. So they talk down the destination. We have to remember that every boat coming into Nassau has not only the foreign visitors, but also has a crew.
And the passengers will ask.
Yeah. And they tend to talk down the destination. They have in their minds, oh, Nassau isn't safe, which is absolute rubbish. 99% of our foreign visitors come here and never have a problem. But they have that perception, and we have to change that perception.
It's a good time now for us to really talk about the cruise port. The government plans issuing a bid document for the outsourcing of the management of Nassau's cruise port, with the intention of transforming Prince George Wharf into the equivalent of a Lynden Pinling International Airport. First of all, what was being proposed for all of this when you came to office versus what you intend to do now?
Okay, so when we got to office, embedded in the Bahamas Investment Authority was a proposal to by a company, Global Ports, to redevelop the port of Nassau. And it was sitting there. So we pulled it out. Well, let's step back. When I first came to office, I walked out to the Prince George dock, and I was amazed at how chaotic it was, how run down it was, how simply unappealing it was. It simply isn't large enough or spacious enough to deal with 10,000 passengers getting off at 7, 8, 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. It was just chaotic. And I said, oh my God, we need to do something about this. So it was brought to my attention that a proposal had been made. I dug it up. I put it back out to them. I said, you know, we're in office now. These are some guidelines. We want to do a redevelopment here. Go out and make your, you know, revise this offer or revise your proposal. And then we became aware of other persons that were interested in making a proposal. And I must say I learned a lot in that process of them submitting their new proposal. But when we saw that there were a lot of, well, not a lot, but a number of other
there were
interested, we decided to stop that process and put it out to an RFP. And we want to put in place an operating entity to manage that port. What happens now is that whatever money that port receives, that money goes into the public treasury, and then the port tries to beg it back to carry out improvements.
So, go ahead.
And there are budgetary constraints and cash constraints, and the place is run down. It needs the focus that the Lyndon Pindling International Airport or the commercial port have received. Both of those gateways into our country, whether for commercial goods or for passengers, are ranked one of the best in the Caribbean.
There's no denying the success of what NAT has done at that airport.
Yeah, and so when you put in what I call private sector management to such an important gateway, remember 3.6 million visitors come through that port. That's their first impression of the Bahamas. And we need to fix that up. We need to, first of all, bring about a substantial investment, a redevelopment of that whole experience. And it requires a lot of money.
What's the time frame now for all of this to happen?
Well, we're in the process of putting together the RFP. That's always this is the first time I've done it. This is the first time it's being done. So, it lurches back and forth.
Those are requests for proposal.
Yeah, requests for proposal.
Okay.
You sort of go out there and you ask anybody who's interested in putting together a proposal to manage this port on behalf of the people of the Bahamas. What would that proposal? So that will take, I don't know. Hopefully in the next 30 days we'll be able to drop something into the public domain and people will be able to put forward a proposal. So hopefully by the end of the year the process is done and we're able to execute an agreement and get going.
I've got to ask you this. How will this tie into what is happening in downtown? I drive through downtown frequently, and it distresses me, the state of downtown, particularly east of East Street. There are just
derelict buildings.
Derelict, run down,
abandoned
storefronts, entire buildings that sit there. And I keep saying to myself almost daily, what are we going to do? Why are these people allowed to keep these buildings in the state that they are in our city center? It is distressing. I see they put up some artwork on one side and I thought, well, there's a Band-Aid on a cancer, but it distresses me as a Bahamian, and particularly I remember when that side of Bay Street was quite vibrant. You had Hotel Corona and all these other businesses down there, and at one point it was a vibrant place, but it is dead, and it is distressing every day.
So the Port of Nassau, whatever proposal is put forward, obviously we're going to evaluate it based on what positive effect those passengers coming off that port can bring onto Bay Street. We're hoping that the investment is so transformative and so substantial and so amazing that it causes the rebirth of Bay Street. And that's from the House of Parliament down to the Hilton. So that's generally where most passengers flow.
That's where the activity is.
And that's where we need to bring about a rebirth. The most annoying thing about Bay Street is that it has multiple owners at various states of wealth, various states of focus. So it's not as if it's owned by one entity, and maybe we need, if you see what brings about a redevelopment of a downtown in the United States, it creates a business improvement district, and people are incentivized to redevelop.
What about forced?
Huh?
Is there anything?
You're incentivized through the taxes.
Okay.
So in some instances, you jack up the taxes, and people say, okay, well, I'm not just into just collecting rent anymore. This isn't viable for me. I want to get out. It's going to cause for it for your business to remain viable based on the tax structure, you have to invest and improve. So that's how they do it in most districts. But from East Street to the bridge, you know, in order to create a living city, you need three components. You need a living component. So there's no place to live on Bay Street. At 5 o'clock, it's abandoned. Secondly, you need parking. And then thirdly, you need food and beverage, nightlife, and you know, and there's 6 or 7 owners from East Street to the bridge. So we're looking at building heights. We're currently building a boardwalk to go along the ocean side there. It's, you know, they own the property. So we have to incentivize them to bring about the redevelopment. And if they don't, I mean, they're wealthy families. Yes.
Minister, we have to take our first break in the show. When we return, we're talking more about our #1 industry tonight, tourism. We'll be right back right after this break.
Every time I'm in the Bahamas, I use REVGO Play.
Got that food. It's packing. Here he comes.
Yo.
Wait, Omar coming?
Boy, this REVGO Play, solid.
Rev, you and us together.
We are back with more on the record tonight. The government's purchase of the Grand Lucayan is a hot subject in the news. We're going to talk about it right now in this segment of our show. Tonight, our topic is Bahamas tourism. The golden goose is laying the golden egg, and we are continuing our discussions with the Minister of Tourism and Aviation, the Honourable Dionisio Diaghilev. The Grand Lucayan was purchased at a cost of $65 million. 423 employees are working to maintain 196 rooms at Lighthouse Point, one of 3 hotels on the property. The other 2 remain closed as a result of hurricane damage. The deal is structured so that the government pays a $10 million deposit, which has been done, and a further $20 million upon closing. It is said it will be financed largely through the budget, with the $35 million split into semi-annual payments of $5 million over 3.5 years. Minister, the Tribune Business reported on September 13th that the repair costs at the Grand Lucayan were significantly less than initially feared, and that repair bill was split evenly between the 3 properties. We spoke of Lighthouse Point, Breakers Key, Memories. Can you confirm that information? And if so, did that really impede what was happening previously when I think it was the Wind Group was trying to purchase the hotel?
So we reviewed, toured the property. And I don't think it's split evenly between the 3 towers. The old Memories property and the Lighthouse Point actually require substantially more money to renovate and upgrade. Breakers Key, we were surprised at how good the condition was.
Because that was said to be the property that you weren't going to open.
Yeah, the roof blow off and water come in and all the rest of it. I was expecting floors of mold and all the rest of it, and I was actually quite surprised. And when we had our people look at it, their initial estimation was it would cost $5–6 million to fix, whereas the other properties would cost $13 to $15 million to fix. So just by initial indication, that's the cheapest one to open. But you know, all the supporting services, the pools and everything else that you'd have to open in order to get that going. Obviously, the $5 million is just the building, and you've got to get all the support services open, restaurants open, all that sort of stuff. But so we were happy and dismayed. We were happy that it wouldn't cost that much to fix. We were dismayed that, you know, for $5 million, Hutchinson Whampoa didn't see fit to get it up and running. Yeah. But
do you think they just had no interest in it?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if you think about Hutchinson Whampoa, right? They made profits, I'm advised, in excess of $7 billion last year. So this hotel to them is just a nuisance, really. It's a rounding error on some report. And they just didn't feel it to open it. And they took their insurance money. They took the money that they're getting from the Bahamas government and have washed their hands of it. If you speak to them, they lost millions upon millions in this hotel, and they're quite happy to be done with it. Clearly, we could not allow that to happen. We could not. We just simply could not allow that hotel to close. Past evidence, I'm sure you're aware, and we've talked about it on many occasions. If you allow that hotel to close, it will become increasingly difficult to reopen. The longer it's closed, the harder it becomes to open.
Grand Bahamians have said to me it would be another Royal Oasis, closed, never to be reopened. People are without jobs.
I mean, if you walk that property, and when we were down there, we walked the Royal Oasis, you know, all the windows are gone, all the toilets are gone, all the fixtures are gone. The place is being completely gutted. The International Bazaar is just derelict, abandoned. It's extremely depressing to go there. And we had visions of that happening at our Lukaya. And, you know, if you look at, in the year 2002, there were 4,000 hotel rooms on Grand Bahama. Today there are 1,700. In the year 2015, 964,000 people came to Grand Bahama. Last year, 2017, 615,000 people came, a drop of 350,000. So Grand Bahama's received some traumatic body blows to its hotel infrastructure, its tourism product. And the government could sit by and say, you know, let market forces determine the outcome. But we felt that it was in the national interest, in the interest of the economy of the Bahamas, because Grand Bahama is an integral component of that. That we have to step in. Look, I'm a businessman. The last person that should be running a business, I fundamentally believe that the government of the Bahamas should not be running businesses. I mean, I'm a private sector guy.
Many of us share that same opinion.
Absolutely. But in this particular instance, if we hold it, if we buy it, I mean, obviously it's not our intention to make this another government corporation and run this for an extended period of time. The way I look at it is we're holding it, nurturing it for the onward sale to someone to do something significant and transformational with. So, yes, we're buying it for $65 million. Hopefully we can sell it for $65 million. But our governments don't buy things to make money in this particular instance. We're just trying to allow for sufficient time to pass where someone gets interested in this property and we can market it and take our time to find someone to come in and run it and bring about its transformation. We can't allow it to fail. It just would be devastating to
So a couple things. There's been a media report as well about this $1 million that Hutchison was paid to keep the hotel open. Is that correct? What was that money for?
Well, you know, I think the day we arrived in office, they gave us like a week to settle in and to pat ourselves on the back about the election victory, and then they sent us a letter saying, hey, we can close this hotel. And the government's like, oh, hold on. Why don't we allow for some time to pass in order for us to see if we can sell it or to bring about someone to buy it. So that time passed, and in order for them to do that, the government said, or Hutchison Whampoa said, look, if you want us to keep us open, you got to help cover the costs. And so the government, as was done by the previous government, was almost forced to pay a monthly stipend, I can't remember the amount, to keep the hotel operational or to keep them from closing, as they tried, as the government was involved in trying to find a new purchaser to buy that hotel. So I don't know the exact amount, but every time we ask them, you know, when they say, okay, we're closing tomorrow, we're like, no. Let's continue to try and find a purchaser. They required us to pay.
When we did some shows in Grand Bahama just recently, and a Grand Bahamian said to myself and the team when we arrived, and this seemed to adequately describe the situation, he said, because we asked him, you know, what do you think about the sale of the hotel? He said, sir, the government was looking down the barrel of a gun.
Correct.
And was it that serious that you felt that backed into a corner? The opposition leader, Philip Brave Davis, has called the purchase of it a waste of money. Some even agree with him. When you hear that, what is your defense of that? When people say, wait a minute, we are paying an additional, you know, we're paying now 12% value-added tax, all these things. Government has said, you know, the cupboards are bare, so we're having to do all of these things, these austerity measures, and you're spending $65 million on a hotel.
But don't look at it as if we're spending $65 million. Obviously, we hope to sell it. So even if we don't sell it for $65 million, we're not going to sell it for zero. So we're going to recoup some of that cost. If you allow it to close, think of all the lost tax revenue that you're going to receive, all the induced employment it's going to create, all the indirect employment it's going to create. So you don't look at, I'm looking at a $65 million investment, I expect to get a return. This is in the national interest. We have to do something. It's a risk. I agree, it's a risk. But that's what we're there to do. That's what life's about to do. You have to take some risks sometime to bring about a positive outcome. You know, business is all about risk. I don't know when I build a new business somewhere that's going to work, but I have to take that risk.
Government is prepared to, I think you're on record saying you're prepared to take a hit on the sale, meaning that you would be open to selling it for less than what you paid for it. Is there a cap? Are you looking at, you know, we're not going to lose more than 5 million, 10 million? Have you really thought about what it is you're looking to sell this hotel for?
You know, there's a lot of interest. Now, whether that interest transforms into a sale, but there are a lot of people who have stepped forward. I mean, almost every day.
Is it just because people didn't want to deal with Hutchison?
They make, some might argue they make the government look nimble. It's just a huge company. It's headquartered in Hong Kong, which is in a completely different time zone, which is the complete opposite of us. You know, they're not as motivated to sell it. They took a significant haircut on their investment. I mean, from what they were asking when we first came to office to what they offered to sell it.
So they brought down the price?
Brought down the price substantially. And we figured we'd reached their line in the sand. They weren't going to go any lower than that. And we bought it. And, you know, as I say, we're not looking to make something from it at the outset, but certainly over the long term as it becomes a viable business entity, hires people, creates economic activity, generates tax revenue. We've got to take that risk.
The chairman of the Hotel Corporation, Michael Scott, has said that he's been meeting with investors and screening people. This is, you know, in addition to what you've said. Can you say with any certainty that you will have a buyer by the time that bidding process goes? I think the bidding process may close somewhere around mid-October. Is that?
No, I think what we're in the process of doing now is putting together a document, a sales document, to float. The plan, you know, the board obviously of that SPV will have to decide what the exact plan is, but I would think the plan would set a period for anybody who is interested to submit a proposal. Then we'll review the proposals, be drawn to the one that makes this most significant impact on the economy of Grand Bahama, negotiate an onward sale, and exit. Now, the time frame, boy, I find in politics, when you give you all dates, you all are totally to the date. So
that's what research is about.
I learned the process a long time. You got to be fuzzy about the date, but sometime in the short term.
Okay. You know, when you look at the fact that so much is riding on this particular property for Grand Bahama, you know, what are the plans outside of that? You know, as the old adage goes, you can't put all your eggs in one basket. You know, you look at Grand Bahama, it was not necessarily set up to be a tourist destination. It was always supposed to be, I guess, the industrial capital. Tourism came about. But certainly the economy is, you know, still very much dependent upon that. But you look at properties like, you know, the Royal Oasis that's been dormant and dying there, the International Bazaar, which was at one point the jewel. You know, as a kid, I marveled at the International Bazaar. You look at, you know, the old Xanadu Hotel, and these were properties that were open, that were vibrant. It had a large, you know, a vibrant gaming industry even at one point. Any plans beyond just the sale of the Grand Lucayan in terms of that island's tourism product?
So there are a number of projects on the drawing board, some of which I can talk about, some of which I can't talk about. Obviously, the one that is the most significant outside of the Grand Lucayan is West End. So that project, I hope and pray that closes, and that you know, Grand Bahama catches a break, and that project commences. It is a substantial a redevelopment of that whole Gin project that we all know about. So we remain hopeful that comes about. There are some interesting developments in the cruise industry that may or may not pan out, but we remain hopeful that happens. You know, the hotels that are not part of the Grand Lucayan are doing relatively well, primarily because supply is down so significantly. So there are, you know, another major project that's being considered. So, you know, as I say, judge us at the end of 5 years. You know, we've been given 5 years to get this done, to turn this around. You know, if we hit a home run on this, we hit a home run on one or two other projects, Grand Bahama will begin to see a revival. If you remember back in 1994 when Solomon Kersner bought Atlantis, right? And that provided the genesis for a massive investment in our hotel infrastructure. We're looking for something like that. And when Solomon Kersner bought Atlantis, you know, Breezes came, Sandals came, the Hilton came, all sorts of hotel companies were interested, fascinated by what he was doing and said, okay, we need to come here and be a part of that. I mean, when I went to Freeport the other day, I went down there and I said, you know, let me immerse myself in this community. I'm a Nasuvian. You know, usually as a cabinet minister, you pop into an island for the day, you pop back. I said, you know what, let me go down there. Let me really get into the heart and soul of Grand Bahama. I went around to a lot of the smaller, more unknown properties, the smaller unknown attractions. I mean, we say that it's not really, it's the industrial capital, but it has some amazing touristic,
particularly ecotourism,
ecotourism, sports tourism. These are definitely areas which we can expand and build off. You know, once again, we're inviting, the Ministry of Tourism is inviting bloggers and influencers to come down there to go off on all these unique and interesting attractions. And you know, I left there certainly a lot better educated and a lot more optimistic about the future, because there's just a lot of interesting things to do down there.
I've got to ask you this. You mentioned, you used the example of the purchase of Atlantis from Sol Kersner back in the 90s, but as Dr. Minister, yourself, others were campaigning into the election, there was a lot of criticism for the former administration for the Bahama project and what happened with that. By your own admission, that property really has now become the jewel of our tourism product, which yourself, the ministry, is taking a lot of credit for in terms of the success of our tourism product. Was it wrong of you to criticize the administration and that property during the campaign for what they were attempting to do and what they were foreshadowing with Bahama?
If you remember, I was on the board of directors of Bahama. I was firmly in the camp of the original developer, Mr. Sarkis Ismailian. My complaint was never about the project. My complaint was the process that we took to lay that project for opening for 2 years. The economic impact, I estimated in the billions, of what that had on the economy for taking the approach that the government of the Bahamas did and bringing about its delay. That is what I complained about. I never complained about, you know, obviously I was on the board of that. I knew what that project was going to do. I knew the impact that it was going to have. I felt that it should have remained in the hands of the original developer at the time. So that's what my complaint was. Why were you taking this route that was delaying the opening of the project by 2 years? It was almost shuttered for a while. You had all the people trained. You were almost there. I felt that the intervention by the Bahamas government in the way that they intervened was what eventually caused that delay to happen, and the loss. You know, as we look at it now, you know, it's open, and as the delay, the 2 year delay, will fade from our memories as time goes on. But at the time, that's what we complained about. That's what we disagreed with.
Sir, thank you very much. We are discussing Bahamas tourism with the Minister of Tourism. Stay with us. On the Record continues right after this.
Hi, I'm here to tell you about the fastest way to purchase the vehicle you want right from home.
With SBT Japan, we import used cars from Japan straight to you.
Car ownership doesn't have to be hard. Go to svtjapan.com and sign up for free. Search for the car you want. Place your order and make a payment using any one of our convenient payment options. Once you pay the duty and tax through our in-house broker, we will clear the vehicle and even deliver it straight to your home. Sounds too easy? Well, shouldn't it be?
We are in our second season of On the Record, and we thank you, our viewing audience, for allowing us into your homes every Thursday at 8 p.m. We value your opinion and we want you to be a part of our discussions. So make sure you follow us on Facebook and Instagram and comment on our exciting topics. Remember, it's all on the record. Welcome back to On the Record. We are discussing Bahamas tourism. The golden goose is laying golden eggs with the Minister of Tourism, the Honorable Dionisio de Aguilar. There is a proposed $950 million investment, I think it is, for the construction of phase 1 of the new development at Old Bahama Bay. Is it 950? I think it's about, that's what my research is, to include a 460 condo development, 300 permanent jobs, 1,000 jobs in the construction phase. The groundbreaking is expected sometime toward the end of the year. Minister, we talked about Grand Bahama, but this particular project in West End, like so many others in so many islands, the communities around these proposed developments are waiting eagerly to see what will happen as communities like these thrive off of these properties. Obviously, a development like this cannot work in every island, but certainly, you know, what is the view towards bringing more of these developments to some of these outlying family island communities that, you know, may not require a 460-room condo, but certainly could thrive off of some kind of development?
You know, I guess the traditional school of thought is that big developments happen in Nassau, medium-sized developments happen in Grand Bahama, and the smaller boutique developments happen in the Family Islands. I don't think we want to deviate off that. If you look at the Family Islands, look at Exuma. Exuma is bursting at the seams. They need actually more hotel rooms. We're speaking with Sandals about the possibility of expanding that property there.
Someone just told me that most weekends they're sold out.
Yes, they do very well. The unfortunate thing about that project, though, is it's actually too small based on the infrastructure they have, and they're seeking to improve and expand the size of that, if possible, if it makes sense economically. So that's on the drawing board. And then you have, you know, something that we have not considered, but is really making an impact, is the explosion of Airbnb and the like, right? So that is doing phenomenally well in the Family Islands, and we in the Ministry of Tourism have to figure out how to measure that, because we don't know how, you know, people come, they land at the airport, and then they disappear, right? And they go into people's homes. And
it's a great money maker too. I mean, you can make great money if you can accommodate.
Yes, it is, and what's beautiful about it is it allows you to go into the hotel industry not having to spend tens of millions of dollars, but by having a room. You start with a room, or you can have a guest house, or a second home. So, and it puts money directly into the hands of the residents of those islands. So, you know, these are the type, if you look at Abaco, for example, Abaco is booming. The foreign visitor arrivals there are up double digits as well.
I heard a report that some of the resorts that typically close during this slow season have remained open in Abaco because they're doing so well.
Absolutely. I mean, Abaco is the poster child for the second home homeowners. It has in excess of 60% repeat customers. People love Abaco, love the ambiance, love the people, love the interaction. They make investments. They come there time and time again. Low impact, low density, many different mechanisms or different ways for people to stay and enjoy all the different islands. It's doing very well. That formula's worked very well. Same in Exuma, same in Eleuthera. Those islands are doing phenomenally well.
Is there anything, though, to encourage that Airbnb industry? I mean, if you want to encourage more of that, there has to be some kind of incentive. I mean, because you're talking about now outfitting a guest house or a room in your home that requires an injection. And, you know, truth be told, these things cost money. So are there any plans on the drawing board to incentivize people that want to go and even regulate that to some extent? Because, you know,
there are no plans to incentivize it. There is a school of thought that these types of accommodations are bringing people to your country. They're using your infrastructure, creating garbage, and they should be using all the goods and services your country offers them, but they're making no contribution to it in a direct sense through taxation. So there is a proposal before us to introduce value-added tax on those types of rentals, and we're working our way through that. You know, the market is taking care of it. I don't personally believe that there is any need for government incentives. The explosion has been enormous. People are involved in it. You can go down Carmichael Road. You can go.
I see tourists everywhere.
So it's driving
around.
people.
Yeah.
It's driving people to areas of the islands where they traditionally never saw, never went to.
And so, true, yeah.
And then what happens is, you know, the example that Airbnb always likes to use is Trenchtown in Kingston. You know, which is not known for being safe, which has a reputation for, you know, multiple homicides on a daily basis, and yet there are Airbnb locations in there, and what happens is the community surrounds them and protects them to ensure that, hey, don't touch this goose because this laying a golden egg, so let's leave this alone. So you know, those are the types of developments I think will begin to grow and expand in the Family Islands and make it more of a you know, a one-on-one, and you know, you really connecting with the local residents, getting into the community, slowing down.
It's almost like the people-to-people, I think, that we tried many years. I think that still exists within the ministry, but I think maybe that's part of the concept. Now, not every development in tourism certainly is being welcomed by communities. I want to talk a little bit about Lighthouse Point in Eleuthera. A decision is yet to be made on the development at Lighthouse Point, which I think is about 700 acres, located on the southern tip of Eleuthera. At odds are two proposals, one submitted by Disney Cruise Lines, the other by the One Eleuthera Foundation, very different proposals. Can you give us any update on what the decision is? Disney obviously owns the property, or owns a portion of it from what I understand, or a beach property, wants to bring a commercial development there in line with what they already do. One Eleuthera wants to go in a very different direction, but still bringing in some kind of commercial activity or business activity. Where's the government with reviewing that whole dispute? And it is growing. Every day I see the ads in the paper, on social media. You know, the other day there were kids in town who was, you know, let's save Lighthouse Point. They were, you know, on the media tour. And so, of course, now here you have this dispute that is steadily growing and has legs.
Okay, so let's establish some facts. The facts are that property is not owned by the government of the Bahamas, not owned by Disney, not owned by One Eleuthera. It's actually owned by a Florida businessman, a Florida developer. Okay. I don't know how long ago he bought it, 10, 15 years ago, and he proposed to make that like a sandy port, like a gated community with canals. And he received approval to do that. So he owns the property.
And that approval is still in existence?
I think, given the passage of time, that he would have to get permission to do that all over again, and I'm almost certain that we wouldn't give it. Okay. So he owns it. It's his. He wants to sell it. So there are two competing groups for this. So the government of the Bahamas really is not in the middle of this in terms of the sale of it. On the one side, you have the Disney Corporation that want to pay whatever they want to pay for it. And it's substantially more than what the other group want to pay for it. So this developer is minded to go with Disney. Disney, of course, won't buy it unless they can do what they want to do with it. So you're right, it's 700 acres. And they are similar in a number of ways. They both want to have a low-density ecotourism product. The Disney Corporation would like to buy the whole thing. They would like to donate 170 to 200 acres to the government of the Bahamas, the people of the Bahamas. If they were to create this park, they've assured us, and it would be written into the agreement, that Bahamians would have access to every single beach, every facet of that facility, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days of the year. Their only stipulation is when a boat was in port, that you would have to park your car at a parking lot and get on one of their trolleys, because obviously you don't want people driving through the park when their passengers come there, because you may strike and
kind of like how you do at Disney World.
Yes.
Okay.
So they would want to choreograph that experience. 80% of their passengers travel with young kids. They're a higher demographic. Their philosophy, and they've heard the noise in the marketplace and they've changed their proposal, is that if you want thrill, you go to our parks. When you come to our islands, you have chill. So they also want to create a low density, low impact, somewhat choreographed experience for their customers. So the other competing group want to do the same in terms of maybe have some small eco hotels on the property. And this is what the government has to make a decision on, what proposal they think would be the best. The people of South Eleuthera will obviously have a significant say in this. There's a group of them that believe, hey, we would like Disney to come in for a number of reasons. Of all the cruise companies, it's the most decent. Of all the cruise companies, they are very, very mindful of their reputation. Their cruise business is a tiny portion of the overall corporation, which is family, eco-sensitive. They will pay better. They will have better working conditions. You know, it doesn't do well for their reputation to treat people poorly. That just doesn't fit into their narrative. They want to have low density, people to come, sit on the beach, go on nature parks, go on trails, ride a bicycle, go off into the communities, experience a life for the Bahamian and Southern Eleuthera. That is what they are proposing. And it's a tough decision for the government.
Very quickly, when can we expect a decision?
Hopefully before the end of the year.
Before the end of the year. Okay, sir. With that, we're going to take our final break in the show. You're watching On the Record. We're going to be back right after this.
Hi, I'm Davriel, and welcome to Rev Tips, where we answer your most important Rev service questions. Today, I want to talk to you about the exciting new REVGO Play app. But how does it work? Well, you start by opening a Cable Bahamas My account, so you can take your TV everywhere. Here's a few notes to get you started watching TV on the go. Step 1. Create a Cable Bahamas My account. Step 2. Download the latest version of the REVGO Play app from the Google Play or iTunes App Store. Step 3. Log into the app using your email and My account password. Step 4. Enjoy your REV TV on the go. Well, that's our Rev Tip for today. Be sure to join us next time for more information on how to get the best out of all your Rev services.
Welcome back to On the Record. Bahamas tourism. The golden goose is laying golden eggs. That's our topic tonight. Our guest in this final segment continues to be the Minister of Tourism, the Honorable Dionisio de Aguilar. Odyssey Aviation has completed an expansion to the tune of some $6 million. A statement from the company said it was having an exceptional 2018. NAD, which operates the Lynden Pinling International Airport, is reporting the busiest summer in its history. Almost every airline servicing the Bahamas increased its capacity as a result of greater marketing strategies, a 6.3% increase in passengers. Meanwhile, in August, Minister, you spoke to the woefully inadequate state of many of the nation's family island airports. you're on record saying that the government lacks the necessary resources to carry out the needed upgrades. What is the solution given the resounding success of NAD and what they've been able to do with, you know, it was a rundown, dilapidated, almost an embarrassing, you know, gateway into the country, and now it is the jewel of the Caribbean. It's a proud moment when you come to that airport and see what it is. You know, how are we now going to address these Family Island airports? 25 Family Island airports, 16 of them cater to international flights. That's a major component of tourism. That's the first thing you see and the last thing you experience, you know, coming in and out.
Actually, it's 28 Family Island
28, okay.
And then you've got Freeport and Nassau, so that makes 30 airports in the country.
Wow.
So the government, well, the government doesn't own the one in Freeport, but the other 28. So you're absolutely right. You have the Lynden Pilling International Airport. That required close to $500 million worth of investment, but it looks wonderful, and it requires more investment. We're seeking to explore the possibility to put an additional runway there to make it a commercial hub. The government is very interested in exploring that avenue and taking the steps to ensure that we realize that dream. And then you go to the Family Islands. The second busiest airport in the country is Marsh Harbour. Not Freeport.
I have seen that, yes. They have a huge amount of airports.
So they built a new airport, I believe, in 2011, and it's slowly deteriorating. So we need to, the government has approved the creation of a similar model that was done at Nassau for Marsh Harbour. And we're going to create a NAD-type model there to bring focus to the management. What Bahamians have to absorb and get used to is that if you want nice airports, you have to figure out a way to pay for them. The reason why the Lynden Pilling International Airport is able to maintain its standards and get its high rankings every year is the fact that they charge passengers to use that. When you go to a Family Island, there is not $1 added to your ticket for you to use that airport. So you get what you pay for. You don't pay nothing for it. It's almost impossible for the government of the Bahamas to maintain all these different airports in far-flung islands. So we've decided to focus on the major airports. Now, the previous administration, to their credit, performed the Stantec report. There's a report by a consulting agency which looked at every single one of these 28 airports. I have to commend my predecessor for that. And she looked at each one, looked at how many passengers go there, looked at everything that was wrong with the airport, what had to be done, what had to be fixed, and that has become the Bible for how to proceed through these Family Island airports. We go to Marsh Harbour. It was redeveloped under the previous F&M administration, finished off by the last PLP administration, and it requires management. It requires the focus, the structure that the Lynden Pilling Airport has, and we're going to seek to do that. The next one on the list in terms of passenger arrivals is Exuma. The government is now commencing, the plans are almost done. Hopefully by the beginning of next year, we can start to put it out to bid, and we can start the redevelopment of Exuma Airport. That's the next one on the list. Then the one after that is Eleuthera. North Eleuthera, that is, North Eleuthera. That has a significant amount of passenger movements, a significant amount of aircraft movements, and when you get there, you're greeted with a shack, right? So these airports require substantial investments. How much does an airport cost? Around $40 million. So if you do Exuma, and you do North Eleuthera, that's $80 million. That's a lot of money, and we don't have it. So we're going to have to look at, as is recommended in the Stantec report, entering into public-private partnerships in order to bring about the redevelopment of these airports. We just have too many of them. They cost too much, but they are such an integral and critical component of the development of tourism on those islands that we have to get this right.
Would a solution be closing some of the airports? Because if you look at some islands that have 3 airports, you look at, for instance, you go into Abaco and you land in Marsh Harbour, and then 5 minutes later you're in Treasure Key. And I often ask myself, are all of these, it's very convenient, mind you, if you're staying in a particular part of the island, but is it really necessary? Can we continue, is it viable, and can we continue to have, an island that has 3 airports?
The business answer is you're absolutely correct. The political answer, what politician is going to campaign, I can close your airport? So what the Stantec report seeks to do, recognizing that political hurdle, is they say, okay, let's look at all your airports. What can the government farm out to a public-private partnerships, number one? what can the government farm out to FBOs? So if you go down to the airport, you've got Executive Aviation, you've got Odyssey. Those are FBOs. Maybe they should be used to operate those airports like a Rock Sound, a Stella Maris, those Deadman's Key, those airports that don't require the state to run. And then what that management would bring is you would start to charge a passenger facility charge. So you charge a fee for people to use the airport, which would be regulated. You could collect landing fees, you could collect parking fees, you could get tie-down fees, you could sell fuel, all of which the government doesn't leverage off.
Final question. This has to do with gaming. We're just about out of time. Some legal challenges to the introduction of the additional 20 to 50% increase in taxes on the gaming houses. This could cost government somewhere in the area of about $40 million, I think probably per quarter. What's the contingency if this continues to be held up in the courts? This was a major component of the budget.
The government projected to receive $75 million from the gaming industry in this fiscal period. I don't know, I'm not a lawyer, and so this is now moved into the hands of the Attorney General's office and the legal wrangling continues. I'm not sure that if the government were to prevail, whether they could go back and retroactively collect those taxes. My advice to them is put that money aside, because even if you go to court, the government believes, and I've said this in the press, that it has an inalienable right to tax. And taxes can be as discriminatory as you want. It says it's embedded right there in the Constitution. I could charge Jerome one tax and Denisio another tax. It doesn't have to be fair. So it will work its way through the courts, and obviously the government will aggressively pursue the retroactivity of these taxes to collect them so we can keep on budget. We feel that it's an industry that makes substantial profits and needs to pay its fair share. And that's the basis upon which we introduced the taxation structure that we did.
Minister, I wish we had more time, because certainly there are some things that we wanted to delve into a little deeper. But thank you for coming on this evening and talking to us. I know that you've got a lot going on in your portfolio, but a very important one. And certainly I think our audience tonight got a pretty good view of what's happening in tourism, and hopefully things will continue to climb, because, you know, even those of us who don't work directly in tourism, we still benefit from it.
Absolutely.
So certainly
Thank you so much for having me, Jerome.
Yeah, my pleasure. And certainly we've got to have you back.
Thank you.
All right, we hope that you've enjoyed tonight's show. Special thanks to the Honorable Dionisio Diaghilev, the Minister of Tourism, for joining us tonight. Also my producer, technical staff, and of course your audience for watching us week after week. Once again, on behalf of all of us, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week, same time, same place.